On our wedding night, my husband looked at me in my white dress and said, "I have to go see Chloe tonight." I promised her before the wedding. I smiled and nodded. A week later, when I still hadn't come home, he finally broke. The wedding reception had ended less than an hour earlier. I hadn't even changed out of my wedding dress. The train still trailed across the polished hardwood floor, and the pins in my carefully styled bun were digging into my scalp. Ethan Walker stood by the front door with his car keys in his hand. His tie had been pulled loose. His suit jacket was hanging over one arm. He looked less like a groom and more like a man trying to escape a room that had suddenly become too small for him. "I have to go see Chloe," he said. He didn't look at me when he said it. He looked at the bouquet sitting on the entry table instead, still wrapped in cream ribbon, still fresh from the wedding photographer's hands. "She's not doing well tonight," he continued. "I promised her before the wedding that if she needed me, I would come." My fingers stopped halfway through removing a pearl pin from my hair. For 1 second, the condo went quiet. Then I said, "Okay." My voice sounded calmer than I felt. Ethan finally turned to look at me. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe. Or confusion. He had probably expected tears, questions, accusations. Maybe he had prepared himself for a scene. I gave him none of that. My maid of honor, Mia Parker, was still in the living room, kneeling beside the couch as she tried to gather the ridiculous length of my dress so I wouldn't trip over it. When she heard him, she shot to her feet so fast the fabric slipped from her hands. "Are you insane?" she snapped. "Ethan, it is your wedding night." Ethan didn't answer her. He tightened his fingers around the keys, opened the door, and walked out. The door closed softly behind him. Not a slam. Not a dramatic exit. Just a quiet click. Somehow, that made it worse. Mia rushed to the door and yanked it open, but the hallway was already empty. She turned back to me, her face flushed with anger. "You're just letting him leave?" I went back to removing the pins from my hair. "He said he had to go." "You are the bride, Clara." I noticed. I smiled faintly at my reflection in the mirror. "Can you help me unzip this dress?" She stared at me like I had just grown a second head. "Clara Bennett, have you lost your mind?" "Not yet." "Not yet," she repeated, her voice rising. "Your husband just left you on your wedding night to go comfort his ex-girlfriend, and you're asking me to unzip your dress. Technically, his first love. That does not make it better." I pulled another pin free and set it carefully on the vanity. My scalp ached from smiling all day, from posing for photos, from standing beside Ethan while his relatives toasted our future as if we had one. Mia marched over and snatched the pin box from my hand. "Do not act like this is normal." "It isn't." "Then why are you so calm?" "Because I had known about Chloe Hayes before I signed the marriage license. Because Ethan had told me the truth in the coldest, cleanest way possible. Because this marriage had never started as a love story. But I didn't say any of that yet. Instead, I said, I'm starving." Mia blinked. "What?" "I barely ate at the reception. Can we order something?" She looked at me for a long second, then swore under her breath, kicked off her heels, and stormed into the kitchen like she needed somewhere to put her anger. By the time the food arrived, I had changed into pajamas. The wedding dress was hanging from the closet door like a ghost. Mia didn't leave. She sat with me on the living room floor, barefoot, furious, and loyal, while we ate greasy takeout from cardboard containers and drank half a bottle of red wine that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. "How long have you even known him?" she asked. 3 months. 3 months, she repeated flatly. "You married a man after 3 months, and on your wedding night he ran off to another woman. When you say it like that, it sounds bad." "It is bad." I picked at a box of noodles. "He's handsome." Mia stared at me. "Don't give me that." She pointed her fork at me. You once rejected a guy who looked like he walked out of a luxury watch commercial because he said the word networking too many times during dinner. You did not marry Ethan Walker because he was handsome. No, I didn't. Ethan was the second son of the Walker family. The Walkers owned a construction supply company that had spread across several states, and everyone in our city knew their name, or at least knew their money. We met through a formal introduction arranged by someone who knew his mother. At dinner, he wore a charcoal gray suit and spoke very little. He asked me 3 questions. What did I do for work? What did I like to do outside of work? What did I expect from marriage? I told him I worked in forensic accounting. I didn't have many hobbies because tax season had eaten my soul, and I expected honesty. He nodded. 3 days later, he asked me to dinner again. By the 5th time we met, he brought a prenuptial agreement and a diamond ring. My family wants me married soon, he said. If you don't mind moving quickly, this can work. After marriage, I won't interfere with your life, and you don't have to interfere with mine. Publicly, you'll have every respect you deserve. I read the agreement from beginning to end. Then I signed it. He had been honest about one thing. He didn't intend to interfere with my life. Because he didn't intend to build a life with me at all. A week before the wedding, after our final set of wedding photos, he took me to a quiet steakhouse and told me about Chloe. There's someone I haven't been able to let go of, he said. I was cutting into my steak when he said it. The knife scraped lightly against the plate. Her name is Chloe. We were together for 7 years. My family didn't approve, and we ended things last year. But she's still emotionally fragile. I promised her that even after I got married, if she truly needed me, I would still come. I set down the knife. Then why are you getting married? My father is sick, he said. He wants to see me settled before he dies. I looked at him across the table. He didn't look guilty. That was the strangest part. He looked like a man explaining the weather. I said, fine. I can cooperate. But I have one line. What line? You don't humiliate me. His eyes lifted to mine. I don't care what you do outside. I don't care how much you care about her. But don't make me look like a fool in front of my friends, your family, or myself. He agreed. So easily. So cleanly. And then, on our wedding night, he broke that promise before the flowers had even started to wilt. Mia was still ranting when my phone lit up on the coffee table. Unknown number. There was a photo attached. In the picture, Ethan was sitting in a warm-looking living room, his back turned toward the camera. On the coffee table in front of him were 2 bowls of noodles. Across from him, only a woman's hand was visible, delicate fingers curled around a glass of water. The text below it read. Mrs. Walker, your husband is having midnight noodles at my place. Want to join us? I didn't reply. I turned my phone face down and picked up another piece of takeout. Mia leaned over. Who was that? No one. She grabbed my phone anyway and saw the screen before it locked. Her face changed instantly. That little. I caught her wrist before she could start typing. Don't. Clara. She wants a reaction. I'm not giving her one. Mia looked at me for a long moment. Then she asked the question I had been avoiding all night. Do you even like him? I chewed slowly, swallowed, and wiped my mouth with a napkin. He's handsome. Mia threw a pillow at me. Ethan didn't come home that night. Mia eventually fell asleep on the couch. I lay alone in the bed that was supposed to belong to both of us, staring at the empty space beside me. Around 3 in the morning, I woke up and saw 12 missed calls from Ethan's mother. I didn't call back. At 7 the next morning, Margaret Walker arrived at the condo in a pale designer suit, with 2 relatives behind her and disapproval written across every inch of her face. Clara, she said before I could fully open the door. Where is Ethan? I had just washed my face. My hair was damp, and I was holding a towel. He had something to take care of last night. Margaret stepped past me into the condo without waiting to be invited. Something to take care of? Her eyes swept the living room, landing on the blanket Mia had used on the couch. What kind of emergency keeps a man away from his own home on his wedding night? I'm not sure. You're not sure? She turned sharply. You're his wife now. If your husband disappears overnight, you don't just go to sleep and hope for the best. I folded the towel over one arm. He told me he had an emergency. Margaret gave a short, humorless laugh. Call him. So I called Ethan. He answered after 5 rings, his voice low and rough. What is it? Your mother is at the condo, I said. She wants you home. There was a pause. Then, faintly in the background, I heard a woman's sleepy voice. Ethan. Who is it? Something rustled on his end. I'll be there soon, he said, and hung up. I put the phone down and looked at Margaret. He's coming. She studied me for a while. Then she said, Clara, I know young couples have their own ways of doing things, but now that you've married into this family, you need to understand something. Ethan can be careless. He has always had people cleaning up after him. That means you need to be smarter than he is sometimes. If he drifts, you pull him back. You don't stand there like a guest in your own marriage. A guest in my own marriage. That was a good description. Ethan came home 20 minutes later. He had changed shirts. His hair had been fixed. If I hadn't heard Chloe's voice on the phone, I might have believed he had spent the night at an office. He looked at me first, then at his mother. Mom, why are you here? To see if my son remembered he has a wife. He lowered his eyes and sat down on the couch. Last night got complicated, he said. I didn't explain clearly to Clara. That was my fault. He said my fault while looking at a bowl of oranges I had set on the table. Not at me. Margaret lectured him for a while about appearances, family reputation, and how relatives were already asking questions the morning after the wedding. Before she left, she took my hand and patted it. Marriage is not easy, she said. Be patient with him. He's under a lot of pressure. I nodded. When the door closed, Ethan and I were alone. He leaned back against the couch and closed his eyes. After a minute, he opened them and looked at me. I'm sorry about last night. I pushed the fruit bowl toward him. Have an orange. He didn't touch it. Clara, if you have something to say, say it. I don't. His brows drew together. We talked about this before the wedding, I said. You said you would still see her if she needed you. That doesn't mean. You left. You came back. We're done discussing it. He stared at me like he couldn't decide whether I was forgiving him or insulting him. Finally, he stood. I'm going to the office. As the door closed behind him, his phone started ringing again. Even through the door, I could hear Chloe's voice, shaky and sweet, calling his name. I finished the orange myself. Then I opened my laptop and started working. My firm had just assigned me a messy case involving 3 years of tax records for a tech founder who believed his former CFO had been hiding revenue. It was exactly the kind of work I liked. Numbers didn't pout, cheat, or send passive-aggressive photos. At noon, my phone lit up again. Same unknown number. This time it was a video. Ethan sat across from Chloe in a restaurant. She was holding a wineglass, saying something I couldn't hear. Ethan reached across the table and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. The caption read, Day 2 together, Mrs. Walker. How's your heart? I saved the video. Then I deleted the message. That evening, Margaret called and told me there was a family dinner at the Walker house. You and Ethan need to come, she said. People are asking questions. I called Ethan. He declined the call after 2 rings. 5 minutes later, he texted. Busy. Go without me. I stared at the message for 3 seconds. Then I replied. Okay. At 7:30, I walked into the Walker family home alone. The dining room was full. Ethan was not there. Margaret's face was tight all evening. Since she couldn't scold her absent son in front of the family, she scolded me instead. My dress was too plain. I didn't pour wine quickly enough for the older relatives. I didn't smile enough. At one point, she said, in front of everyone, if Ethan has trouble settling into this marriage, Clara, you should ask yourself whether you are making this home feel like somewhere he wants to return to. The table went quiet. One of Ethan's uncles tried to laugh it off. I lowered my head and ate my rice slowly. Across from me, a younger cousin took a photo of the table and posted it in the family group chat with a caption. New bride dining solo already. My phone buzzed. I saw it. I ignored it. Halfway through dinner, Margaret put down her fork and looked at me. Have you and Ethan talked about children? No. You're 27, she said. There is no reason to wait forever. Ethan's father wants grandchildren, and this family has always cared far too much about legacy. My appetite vanished. I'll discuss it with Ethan. You should do more than discuss it. A wife needs to understand what matters to the family she married into. I lifted my glass of water and took a sip. For the first time that night, I almost laughed. They wanted a legacy from a marriage their son had abandoned on the first night. After dinner, Margaret offered to have the driver take me home. I declined. I walked for almost 20 minutes in the cold evening air before stopping under a street lamp and checking my phone. There were 3 messages. One from Mia asking if I wanted to drink. One from work. One from Ethan. Not coming home tonight. Sleep without me. I stared at the words for a long time. Then I texted Mia back one word. Drink. Mia lived 10 minutes away by cab. By the time I arrived, she had already opened 2 beers and spread fried chicken, pickles, and chips across her coffee table. So, she said, handing me a bottle. Your husband chose the tragic ex-girlfriend again. He said he's not coming home. Clara, when do you plan to stop acting like you're watching someone else's marriage burn down? I took a drink. Maybe when it becomes my marriage. She sat back, eyes narrowing. That is a very weird thing to say. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. This time, it was a voice message. I didn't play it out loud. I pressed the transcription button instead. Mrs. Walker, Ethan is sleeping here tonight. Want to see our bedroom? Below it was a photo. Ethan sat on the edge of a bed, his back to the camera. On the nightstand were 2 mugs. One had a cartoon cat printed on it. I turned the phone face down on my thigh. Mia noticed. Who is it? Spam. You are lying. Probably. She looked like she wanted to shake me, but she didn't. That night, I slept on Mia's couch. On Sunday morning, I woke before her and made noodles in her kitchen. When she came out with wild hair and a wrinkled t-shirt, she stared at the bowls like I had performed a miracle. You cook. It's noodles, not surgery. She sat across from me and took a huge bite. You would have been a good wife, she said. Too bad your husband is an idiot. I smiled and said nothing. My phone had been charging in the living room. When I checked it, there were more than 20 missed calls from Margaret. The last voicemail had been left 10 minutes earlier. Clara. Where are you? Ethan is in the hospital. Get here now. I called back immediately. Margaret answered by shouting, your husband was beaten up last night, and you were nowhere to be found. My fingers tightened around the phone. Which hospital? She gave me the address and kept scolding, but I had already grabbed my coat. When I reached the hospital, Margaret was waiting outside Ethan's room with two relatives. The moment she saw me, she stood and pointed at me. "Where were you last night?" I was still holding a bag of oranges I had bought from the hospital lobby. "What happened to Ethan?" "What happened?" Her voice shook with anger. "He has a broken nose, a sprained wrist, and a mild concussion. The doctors want him under observation. And you, his wife, didn't answer your phone all night." I stepped around her and looked through the window in the door. Ethan was half lying in bed. Gauze covered the bridge of his nose, one side of his face was bruised, and his right hand was wrapped. Beside him sat Chloe. She was wearing a soft white sweater, her hair tied loosely at the nape of her neck. She was dipping a cotton swab in water and touching it gently to Ethan's lips. I watched for 3 seconds. Then I opened the door and walked in. Ethan's expression changed when he saw me. Chloe turned as well. Then she smiled. "Clara," she said warmly, as if we were old friends. "Ethan is okay. Broken nose, injured wrist, mild concussion. The doctor said he just needs rest." I set the oranges on the nightstand and pulled over a chair. "What happened?" Ethan pressed his left hand to his forehead. "Some drunk guys outside a convenience store. It got out of hand." Chloe quickly added, "They were bothering me first. Ethan stepped in, and they attacked him. When I got there, he was already on the ground." Later, I would learn that Chloe had called him first, crying because a few drunk men were bothering her outside the store. He had run to her without thinking, just like he always did. I looked at her. "So he was with you last night?" Her smile didn't change, but her fingers paused around the cotton swab. "Yes," she said softly. "He stayed at my place." The room went quiet. Margaret had come in behind me. She heard every word. Instead of looking ashamed, she turned on me. "You see? Ethan got hurt, and Chloe was the first person there. His own wife didn't even answer the phone. My phone was on silent." Margaret's face hardened. "You're his wife now. You don't get to make yourself unreachable when something happens to him." Chloe stood and threw the swab away. "Mrs. Walker, don't blame Clara. Maybe she didn't notice." She smiled at Ethan. "I should go. Rest well." At the door, Ethan called her name. "Chloe." She turned back. "Text me when you get home," he said. She nodded, smiled again, and left. Margaret muttered, "At least someone knows how to care for him." Then she looked at me. "From today on, you'll come here every day. Take time off work if you have to. I have a case due next week." "A case?" she snapped. "Ethan is in the hospital, Clara. Surely your client can survive without you for a few days." I looked at Ethan. He said nothing. That answered more than any words could have. For 3 days, I came to the hospital every morning. I brought soup, fruit, clean clothes, chargers, and the little things people always need but never remember to pack. During the day, I sat beside Ethan and answered work emails from my phone. At night, I went back to the condo and worked until after midnight. Margaret treated me like hospital staff. "Get more water. Ask the nurse about the scan. Fold his jacket. Call the driver." I did all of it. Not because I was soft. Because I had promised someone I would. Ethan noticed. At first, he seemed uncomfortable. Then confused. Then something else. On the second evening, he woke from a nap and found me typing an email by the window. "Clara." I looked up. "Do you need water?" "No." His eyes stayed on me. "Chloe told me she sent you messages." My hand paused above the screen. "What messages?" "She said she sent photos. Videos." I put the phone down. She did. And you never said anything? What was there to say? His face tightened. I said, we made this clear before the wedding. You could go see her. I wouldn't interfere. Just don't humiliate me. That wasn't what I meant. But that's what happened. He had no answer. I stood and picked up my coat. I'm going downstairs to get dinner. What do you want? Anything. At the door, he said quietly, Clara, don't be like this. I turned back. Like what? He didn't answer. When Ethan was discharged, Margaret told the driver to take him home first, then pulled me into her car under the excuse of grocery shopping. The real lecture began before we left the hospital parking lot. Clara, don't take Chloe's presence at the hospital to heart, she said, looking out the window. That girl is Ethan's past. I know. You say that, but you must also understand that Ethan is your husband now. You can't spend all day buried in work. Men need warmth at home. A hot meal. A wife who is present. I can cook after work. What time do you get off? Usually 6. 6. She gave a small laugh. Ethan is sometimes home by 5. I looked straight ahead. I'll adjust. She seemed satisfied. Ethan behaved for several days after coming home. He didn't mention Chloe. No unknown numbers texted me. He came home early, sat quietly on the couch, and watched me work at the dining table. One night, he walked behind me and glanced at my laptop. Your firm makes you handle all of that alone. I'm only responsible for this client. You worked at a Big Four firm before. 3 years. He looked surprised, as if it had only just occurred to him that I existed outside the role his family had assigned me. Later that night, after I came out of the shower, he was waiting near the bedroom door. Clara, can we talk? I dried my hair with a towel. Sure. He hesitated. If you really mind what happened with Chloe, I can. You don't have to. His expression changed. I told you, I said. I won't interfere. His jaw tightened. Do you not care about this marriage at all? I stopped drying my hair. Then I looked at him. Ethan, you were the one who told me this marriage was for your family. You were the one who said you had someone you couldn't let go of. You were the one who left on our wedding night. And now you're asking whether I care about this marriage? He stared at me. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then he said, you're not the woman I thought you were. Which woman was that? The one from our first dinner. His voice was lower now. You smiled a lot that night. I thought maybe you liked me. I did think you seemed decent. And now? I didn't answer. He stepped closer. His uninjured hand lifted slightly, like he wanted to touch my face. I turned my head. His hand fell. Give me your phone, I said. He blinked. What? Your phone. His face shifted. For 5 seconds, he didn't move. Then he took it from his pocket and handed it to me. I opened his messages with Chloe. The latest one was from the night before. Chloe, your wife really doesn't get mad. Does she even love you? Ethan had replied with one word. No. I handed the phone back. She's right, I said. I don't love you. He went still. I turned toward the living room, but he grabbed my wrist. Then why did you marry me? His fingers were tight enough to hurt. I looked down at his hand, then back at him. At our first dinner, you asked me 3 questions. You forgot the 4th. What 4th question? Why I agreed to marry you so quickly. His grip loosened. Tell me now. I pulled my wrist free. Because your father came to me last December. Ethan's face emptied. What? Richard Walker asked to meet me before your family arranged the introduction. He told me he didn't have much time. He said he wanted to see you married before he died, and he was afraid you would never break away from Chloe on your own. Ethan stared at me as if I had started speaking another language. He offered me money, I said. A large amount. In return, I was supposed to marry you and play the role of your wife until he was gone. His face went white. So you did it for money? Yes. How much? That doesn't matter. He suddenly swept a glass off the coffee table with his left hand. It hit the floor and shattered. Water spread across the rug. Clara, he said, his voice hoarse. What the hell did you take me for? I looked at the broken glass. The same thing you took this marriage for. His breathing grew uneven. He stood in the middle of the room, bruised, pale, furious, and shaken in a way I had never seen before. After a long silence, he asked, was there even one day when you wanted to be my wife? I lifted my eyes to him. On our wedding night, I asked myself that question. His face tightened. Then I saw the photo Chloe sent me. You were sitting in her living room, eating noodles with her while I was still in my wedding dress. I smiled faintly. That gave me my answer. He said nothing. I bent down, picked up the largest pieces of glass, and threw them away. Then I went to the bedroom and took out my suitcase. I had never given up my old apartment. When I renewed the lease before the wedding, Mia laughed and told me I was keeping an emergency exit. She had been right. Ethan watched me unzip the suitcase. You're leaving. I'm going back to my place for a while. Clara. You're almost healed. I'll still attend family dinners when necessary. I'll still cooperate in public. I promised your father I would, and I don't break my promises. I closed the suitcase. At the door, Ethan said, you never planned to stay with me forever, did you? I turned around. Ethan, have you ever asked yourself why your father would rather pay a stranger to marry you than accept Chloe? He froze. Because he knew Chloe wasn't trying to build a life with you, I said. She was trying to make sure you owed her forever. His face darkened. Yes, I married you for money, I said. But at least I named my price. You could accept or refuse. Chloe made you pay for 7 years without ever sending an invoice. Then I opened the door and left. I didn't look back. But as I walked down the hallway, I heard the faint crunch of slippers stepping over broken glass. Then I heard Ethan say my name. Not loudly. Not angrily. Just broken. Clara. I rolled my suitcase into the elevator and blocked Chloe's number before the doors closed. Then I texted Mia. Can I stay with you tonight? She replied instantly. What happened now? I typed several different answers. Deleted all of them. Finally, I wrote. It's over for now. After that night, I didn't return to the condo for a full week. On the first day, Ethan called me more than a dozen times. I didn't answer. He texted. Where are you? I replied. At my apartment. He wrote. Come home. We need to talk. I replied. We already talked. On the second day, Margaret called. What is this behavior, Clara? She demanded. Newlyweds argue. They do not move out after a few days. I was standing in the break room at my firm, watching coffee drip slowly into a paper cup. I'm taking a few days to calm down. Calm down from what? Ethan is still injured. Do you want outsiders laughing at this family? I'm not making a scene. You are making a scene by leaving. I picked up the coffee. It was bitter. Then Margaret lowered her voice. Did Ethan see Chloe again? I didn't answer. She seemed to realize too late what she had admitted by asking. After an awkward pause, she said, just come back soon. And don't forget what you promised his father. I haven't forgotten. On the third day, Ethan stopped calling. Instead, he texted. He said Chloe would never contact me again. He said he had confronted her about the messages. He said he didn't know she had been sending photos and videos. He said he was sorry. I didn't reply. On the fourth night, he came to my apartment building. I saw his car parked at the curb when I got back from work. He stood beside it in a dark coat, his face still bruised, his body thinner than before. I stopped walking. He saw me too. For a while, we only looked at each other across the sidewalk. Finally, he said, I waited 2 hours. Do you need something? His throat moved. You really aren't coming back. Not right now. How long is not right now? I don't know. His hands curled at his sides. Clara, I didn't mean to lash out at you that night. I know. He struggled for words. I realized I never actually knew you. I laughed softly. That is my line. His face went pale. I walked past him toward the entrance. He didn't stop me. But just before I opened the door, he said, I ended things with Chloe. My hand paused on the handle. Then I said, that's your business. On the 5th day, Mia came over with dinner. She walked in, saw files and spreadsheets spread across my dining table, and rolled her eyes. I thought running away from your husband would look more dramatic than this. You're just working from a different apartment. What should I be doing? Crying? Once, maybe. Just so I know you're human. I laughed. She unpacked the food and watched me for a while. Then her voice softened. Clara, were you really only with him for the money? I didn't answer immediately. In my mind, I saw Ethan from that first dinner, charcoal suit, calm voice, careful eyes. I remembered thinking he seemed decent. Not warm, exactly. But honest. Handsome. Controlled. Polite. A man who looked at you when you spoke, who didn't interrupt, who seemed like he might be safe. If there had been no Chloe. If there had been no arrangement. If he had not walked out on our wedding night in his groom's suit. Maybe I would have tried. Maybe I would have wanted to. But the most useless word in the world is maybe. I picked up my fork. I liked him a little, I said. At first. Mia was quiet. But it doesn't matter now. She sighed. When your heart closes, you really lock the door. On the 6th day, Richard Walker called me. His voice was weak, much weaker than when I last saw him. Clara. I sat up straight. Mr. Walker. He chuckled softly. Still Mr. Walker. I closed my eyes for a second. Dad. There was a pause. I heard about Ethan, he said. I held the phone tighter. I'm sorry, he continued. I thought marriage might teach him to let go. I didn't expect him to hurt you like this. You don't need to apologize. I agreed to this. I asked too much of you. No. I made my choice. He was silent for a long time. Then he said, Clara, marriage is not a contract, no matter how it began. If you cannot live with him, don't trap yourself for my sake. My fingers went cold. Dad. I wanted to see my son with someone beside him before I left, he said softly. But if he doesn't know how to treasure that person, then that is his burden to carry. Before hanging up, he said one final thing. You don't owe anyone your pain. I sat by the window long after the call ended. On the 7th night, Ethan called again. This time, I answered. Neither of us spoke at first. The silence stretched so long that I almost thought the call had disconnected. Then his voice came through. Rough. Low. Exhausted. Clara, I regret it. I looked out at the streetlights below. Regret what? Leaving on our wedding night, he said. Letting Chloe send those messages. Sitting there while my mother blamed you. Thinking that because you didn't cry, it meant you didn't care. I said nothing. I shouldn't have asked if you loved me. Why not? Because I had no right to ask. His breathing was unsteady. These past few days, every time I go back to the condo, it feels empty in a way I can't explain. Your clothes are still in the closet. Your laptop stand is still on the table. Your mug is still in the kitchen. But you're not there. His voice dropped. I used to think that if you didn't make a scene, the damage wasn't serious. Now I understand. You didn't make a scene because you had already left inside. I let out a quiet laugh. You're only realizing that now? Yes, he said. Too late. Wind moved the curtains beside me. After a moment, he said, so I want to ask a different question. Ask. If I never see Chloe again. If I treat this marriage as real from now on. Would you be willing to get to know me again? I closed my eyes. Ethan, I said quietly, regret isn't love. It's just guilt showing up late. The line went silent. His breathing was still there, faint and uneven. I'll still keep my promise to your father, I said. When I need to attend family dinners, I will. When I need to cooperate in public, I will. You should focus on healing and stop making yourself miserable. What about you? What about me? Will you come home? I looked out at the night. Maybe when I want to. And if you never want to? I didn't answer. After a long silence, he gave a small, bitter laugh. I understand. I hung up. That night, I didn't sleep well. Around 4 a.m, I got up for water. My phone screen lit up on the table. Ethan had sent one message. Clara, I'll wait. I stared at those 3 words for a long time. Then I turned the phone face down and walked to the window. The city was still dark. Quiet enough to pretend nothing had happened. But I knew better. Some things, once broken, never go back to what they were. Like the glass Ethan had swept off the coffee table that night. You can clean the floor. You can throw away the large pieces. You can even pretend the room is safe again. But tiny shards always hide somewhere you can't see. And one day, when you step wrong, they cut you all over again. I had already bled once. I wasn't ready to bleed a second time.